Alright, we have done both the weapon suggestion and the gadget suggestions for Season 5, and a lot of you people commented very fun and interesting ideas. So hello and welcome to this new video where we will be going over your most interesting suggestions for both weapons and gadgets. Unfortunately, I cannot go over every single idea because there was a lot of them, so we will be going over the most popular ones. Also, the names on the comments will be blurred, and I would say it's for privacy reasons, but realistically speaking, this because I don't want to see you guys flame each other in the comments. Just before we start, if you agree with these ideas and would like a developer to see this video potentially adding the weapons to the game, please leave a like to increase our chances. That being said, let's begin the video. So let's look at the light first. Our first suggestion is the Grease Gun, which is an American-made submachine gun designed in the 1940s. It shoots at 450 rounds per minute and is chambered in 45 ACP. And we would have stats that look something like this. Now at first glance you might look at the DPS and ask yourself, why would you give it such a low DPS compared to, for example, the XP54 and the M11, which both sit at about 250 damage per second. But before I explain you why, I just want to tell you that I'm making these stats based on a real life weapon. So at 450 rounds per minute, you would have twice the amount of time of shooting time before you need to reload. And at 30 damage per round, you would have twice the amount of damage potential per magazine compared to both the XP54 and the M11. For the other stats, I gave it a 3-second reload speed, which is on the slower end to punish you in case you miss all 30 of your shots. And I gave it a short range as it's still an SMG, and also because we don't want to give the light players an FCAR. The other most popular suggestion for the light class is a fairly similar one to the Grease Gun, which is the UMP-45, which is a German submachine gun developed in the early 2000s, which now shoots at 600 rounds per minute. And because of that, the other stats have been slightly tweaked, but the performance of the weapon is the same as the Grease Gun. And then before moving on to the abilities, from the most liked comment, an honorable mention, a plasma mine launcher. So reading the comment, it would be like Demo Man from Team Fortress 2, left click shoots, right click explodes the mine without no cooldown so you can explode the mid-air. It is definitely an interesting concept and it could make it into the finals. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Now about the things we talked about so far, if you don't agree, please leave a comment down below so we can have a genuine discussion about it. Finally, for the gadget, we have a smoke dispenser. And to make it different from the smoke grenades that the light class already has, we're gonna make them deploy instantaneously, making them much more effective, but also working in tandem with the thermal vision in a much better way. So we talked about the light, we can now move on to the medium class. Akimbo 1911s is what by far I've seen the most, or rather just 1911s, but Akimbo is just cooler. So I specifically curated these numbers to match the performance of the other pistol of the medium class, the 357. Is that a good idea? It's hard to tell. But let's look at the stats to see what I'm talking about. So we have a DPS of just 2 points shorter than the 357 at 220 damage per second, and the other stat that I was trying to match is the potential magazine damage. But the total damage per magazine for the 1911 would be 462, while for the 357 would be 444. The idea is that if one pistol works, then the 1911 should just do the same. The problem is that on paper and in game, it's two different things. So like I said, it's hard to tell if it's a good idea or not. Anyway, moving on to the other comment, we have something similar to what I suggested, except this time it's the Frankie Spas 12 combat shotgun, rocking still Dragon's Breath rounds. It is pretty much the same thing as the Saiga 12, so talking about the same weapon twice feels redundant. Let's move on then. In the same fashion as we did with the light class, looking at the most liked comment, we get a laser rifle. And instead of aiming with the right click, we get a fire mode selector, from laser bolts that deal fire damage to a solid beam. So I suppose the laser bolts set on fire goo and gas, just like with the flamethrower for example, if they deal fire damage. Now the problem that I have with the solid beam is, how do we balance it? Because it's a laser, so it technically doesn't have range, but we can't really just do that because then you can just be hitting people from insane distances without losing any damage. So I'm guessing that the way to balance it, we could maybe make it a charged beam. Instead of just being a solid beam and shooting at the maximum power right away, we make it charge up and then shoot one laser beam, something similar to the charged rifle in Titanfall maybe. Let's now get to the specialization for the medium class, and I am dying to show you this because this is a lot of potential, or at least promises to be fun. So here it is, sleight of hand, switch to a random weapon in your inventory. He then says that the weapon you switch to should only last for 1 or 2 magazines. I'm gonna say 1 magazine is more than enough. And I would like to change it from one of the random weapons in your inventory to a completely random weapon, so make it any weapon of any class. The amount of fun that you can get from this specialization alone is insane. Would it change the meta? Probably not, but is it gonna be fun? Very much. And last but not least, we can talk about the heavy class. Beginning with by far the most controversial suggestion, an anti-material rifle. So no specific weapon suggested, and we could have took the easy route and went for the 50 cal Barrett, but I got a better idea in mind. What about the Soloq 20mm self-loading anti-tank rifle? This gun would be insanely fun, but we'll look at the stats later because I try to make it balanced without being a nightmare for the light class. Here you can see a 20mm next to a 50 BMG. It doesn't shoot bullets, it shoots rockets. Just listen to this. That stuff, man. Anyway, let's look at the stats now, which I hope will not make it look overpowered. So the main focus is the damage. I did not want lights to be killed in one shot. We have a slow fire rate of less than 1 shot per second. So the idea behind is you miss a shot, you get punished. Take a good look and let me know what you think in the comments, please. Moving on to the second heavy suggestion, we have of course the minigun. And the best fit for this suggestion would be the M61 Vulcan Gatling rotary cannon. Now, of course, I couldn't give it 6,000 rounds per minute like in real life, so I gave it a little bit less. At 1500 rounds per minute, but every single bullet deals 8 damage with a 1.25 crit multiplier, it would have a DPS of 200, but with a very low mobility. Now, for balancing, do we give it a wind-up time or not? Because this is something that we need to talk about, and I think the best place to do that would be in the comments down below. Now let's look at the suggestion on the most liked comment. An ion cannon. Hold the trigger to charge and fire, very long range and high damage. So I guess this one would be like the charged rifle from Titanfall then. And finally we get to what I suppose would be a gadget, not an ability. The Whizbanger. Or Witzbanger, I don't know how to say it. I would love to see this meme being added to a game, and I think it would fit perfectly in the finals. Gadget wise, I think it would make a light sized hole into a wall that you could use to shoot from, or for a light player to go through. Alternatively, we could just make an RPG skin. Another interesting suggestion would be the drone airstrike that inflicts damage and breaks walls and ceilings. That would just fit the heavy like a glove, and it would be useful to attack objectives that might be heavily defended. Unfortunately, this is the end of the video, but if you want to keep talking about these suggestions, there's no better way than to comment down below. That being said, I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did, subscribe for more content about the finals, and I'll see you next time.